Hi, it's Craig. I've had a couple of things turn up this week that I thought it would be fun to share with you. So they're in these envelopes. Let's have a look. Now, some of you might recognise these as the Random House bookmarks that were released in line with Return of the Jedi in 1983. You see them around quite a lot, and they've always been in the corner of my eye as a collectible that I might one day get into. But it was one of our recent Those Old Fossils shows where we've started looking at specific characters, and this guy came up, which is unusual because you don't often find an Obi-Wan collectible from that era. In the process of putting the enhanced show together, I went online to search for images of these, which of course led me to eBay, and I found a couple of sellers selling these at reasonable prices. I mean, they're pretty easy to pick up. So I pulled the trigger, and this is 14 of the 16 which came as a set. But as I say, they've always intrigued me because they are unique art, they're very distinctive, but they also owe a real debt to a particular artist of a particular movement. Now, we talked quite a bit about the influence of Art Nouveau over certain elements of the production of Attack of the Clones, and it's very much in evidence here as well. Specifically the work of a guy called Alfonso Mucha, who was a Czechoslovakian artist who was working at the turn of the century, got quite famous for designing opera posters for Sarah Bernhardt in Paris, and later on more commercial work in the US. And his work is typified by these full figure images that are set in very ornate borders, and they all adopt this kind of long format, which is ideal for bookmarks. So you can see where the influence came from. You know, they're a kind of pastiche. You know, I'm not saying that the work is on a par with Mucha's work, but it's certainly got that influence, and definitely worth a second look. So when it comes down to identifying the artist for this set of images, there's nothing out there written down that attributes this work to an illustrator, but I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that it is the work of Patricia Wynne. Now, Patricia Wynne was a book illustrator still working in New York today, who had quite the pedigree at Random House when it came to Star Wars publications. So she was responsible for the Punch Out and Make It book in 1978, R2-D2, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, and Luke Skywalker's Activity books, the Wookiee storybook, and this, which is the Empire Strikes Back pop-up book. So as I say, these haven't been accredited to Patricia, but if you look at some of the illustrations, you can see that here's a good example. Check this out. The style of the faces there, this pencil crayon style drawing, it all lines up to me. So I think it's not a wild guess to suggest that Patricia Wynne worked on these during her time either at Random House as an in-house illustrator or as a contractor to them. And when you look at these, then it's not an obvious style to associate with Star Wars. It's soft and colourful. But when you consider the work that she did for Random House, it was all aimed at that more junior audience. So you can see how she would have been approached to soften some of the scarier, more sinister elements of Star Wars and make it more child-friendly. So until somebody says otherwise, I'm gonna go with Patricia as the artist responsible. So let's have a closer look at these. They're numbered. Random House wanted us to know where we were in the set of 16, and number 1 is Luke Skywalker in his Jedi gear, and he's been drawn on the Death Star, and he's in the throne room. And you know, in the same way that Mucha would put decorative detail around the borders of his pieces that help tell the story or give a little bit more explanation to the character, Luke's got these very tech-looking illustrations of, you know, what could be bits of control panel, what could be bits of TIE fighters, but rendered as windows. So they're interesting. It's a folksy style. It's a very unique art style, and it's certainly distinctive. So Luke's number 1, Vader's number 2, which I don't have, and I'll drop him in here. But he's portrayed very much in the dramatic villain style of explosions in the background. Tough guys don't look at explosions. And there's Vader. And again, he's got these kind of geometric, kind of hieroglyph style sort of elements to his border, which I don't fully understand, but the artist is, you know, interpreting that character, and perhaps they're there to reflect elements of his chest plate. I'm not sure. Leia, in her bouge disguise, and she's obviously shown in Jabba's throne room, but you know, the detail around her edging is almost kind of aboriginal. I don't really kind of understand where that's from, but again, it's perhaps suggesting the culture of Tatooine, Jabba's palace, the alien nature of that environment. Number 4, R2, and R2's on Endor, and you can see there, obviously, little snails and creepy crawlies and fern that reflect the forest moon. 3PO, I think, is supposed to be on the Falcon, but you know, perhaps more of an Empire Strikes Back image, this one. Number 6 is Lando as the skiff guard, and he's got Falcon in the background and flowers on his border, and then the sort of carbon freeze elements, maybe to demonstrate his Bespin roots, with the purple cloud maybe representing Cloud City. I'm not sure, but he's got a good one. Here's Chewbacca, and he's slightly knock-kneed. He's having to bend down so he fits the format, but he looks like he's your greeter at a restaurant, checking if you've got a reservation or not. But yeah, I think that's supposed to be the Falcon. I think he's fixing it. He's got some sort of tool in his hand. Yoda, obviously he's on Dagobah, and his little motifs around the edges are all the leaves and vines of his home planet. Obi-Wan. See, at this point, Obi-Wan's in the celestial plane, isn't he? So he's got this swirly galaxy-style image behind him. And again, strange sort of Aborigine style patterning around his border, perhaps to suggest the mysticism of the Jedi. Han is on the Falcon, and I'm not sure what's going on with his border either, but certainly interesting. Maybe it's Corellian. Fett. Hard to tell what this background's supposed to be. Maybe there's elements there of Mandalorian shapes and patterns inspired by the armour, I'm not sure. Ewok. Ferns and leaves, as you would expect. I mean, out of all of them, this is very, very akin to the Mucha pieces, with this arch at the top. The Emperor's Royal Guard has sun motifs. Quite why? We'd need to speak to the artist. Cool looking stormtrooper. I think this is kind of Endor bunkerish. I think that's what's going on here. Certainly Death Star style lighting. The lozenge shapes, the blue and the red. Buttons and panels. He's pretty cool. Number 15 is Jabba. And Jabba has, again, some intricate border work that depicts snakes. But he's the other one I don't have. Jabba and Salacious Crumb. And the final one is Admiral Akbar. And what's cute about this is he's got a little fish, but they look like those sea monstery things. An interesting interpretation of Admiral Akbar. So this is my set as it stands, missing the two that I will be looking out for now. And I think some of you will probably agree, they make for quite a nice set. The art style is quite unique. I think they're certainly of a time, certainly very quirky. So from what I've been able to find out, these were sold at bookshops and places like that in a countertop display. But as I say, they have been very readily available over the years. But certain characters tend to be harder to get than others. Obviously, popular characters, Vader and Fett, can command a slightly higher price, but, you know, all under sort of £15 at the top end, I think. You do see a lot of them with a little red stripe. My understanding is that they were remaindered and marked for discount. So you do often find this little red stripe, which appears on the side. I think this one's got one actually. Yeah, you can just see that there. And I imagine the ones that are in distribution today probably all came from one lot that originated in the US. The Random House stuff was sold over here in the UK. And certainly some of the books crop up with UK price stickers on. So certainly the early Random House items, like the pop-up book, were rebadged with the Collins imprint. But the subsequent ones, the Empire and the Jedi ones, weren't. So yeah, I believe you could pick these up in the UK, and certainly, you know, these all came from UK sellers. One of the other things I've noticed, which is quite interesting, is you sometimes see them listed as matte or shiny versions, and I've got this one here, which is one I've had kicking around for a while, but it's got like a laminate on it, but you can see there it's very much dried and is coming away. So my working theory is that perhaps they were all like this, and just over time this laminate's just given up the ghost, lost its adhesion, and we get the matte versions. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you know different to me and you can put me right on that, but that's a bit of an educated guess. Another thing that's probably worth mentioning about the production of these is that they're all die cuts. And by that I mean a metal cookie cutter style die would have been made to achieve these shapes around the top of every one of the bookmarks. And you know, I don't know how much these retailed at, but you know, that's quite a process in terms of print production. So 16 unique dies, the laminate that we've talked about. I mean, these are quite good quality items. It's a shame on some of them where, obviously, to avoid these areas being quite so delicate and curling and crushing, they've had to sort of approximate the shape of some of the more detailed elements. So you do get the odd one where you get this little white edge, which detracts a little bit from the finished pieces. But yeah, there's another example of it there with the top of Leah's staff. But yeah, I think, you know, these would have been quite premium items at the time, and you would have spent money on that given the work that's gone into them. So this is my set as it stands, but before I finish, I just want to share this with you, because when it comes to collecting bookmarks, I do have form. This is actually my childhood collection of leather bookmarks from various tourist destinations and attractions around the UK that I put together as a child on our many trips to castles and museums and seaside towns, and I've never had the heart to throw it away. So yeah, I'm just sharing because it amuses me. I'm sure it'll amuse you. So it's a surprise really that it's taken me this long to get into Star Wars bookmarks, but there you go. Who knows what those old fossils will inspire me to go looking at next. If you do want to check out our shows, and there's some good stuff from the last couple of years, visit generationskywalker.com. You'll be able to search through the modern shows and through the vintage shows and all the other things we get involved in. So check it out, get involved, and I'll be back with another unboxing before long. Cheerio.